Look at this crowd. Look, there is standing room only. This is going to be a very, very difficult job because this is a stage that is filled with so much brilliance that it is difficult to be in conversation with this much brilliance. But I want to start by talking a little more about both of your brilliance because you're so lovely. I'm on stage with two of the most talented women in the world today, not only because they're so bloody good at what they do, but because of how many things they do and how they juggle all of those along. Now, you've heard some impressive biographies of both of them, but I want to tell you a little more about these two superwomen on stage. Now, Huma, you're an actress, but you're also a history student, and you were at Gargi College in Delhi. You've been a theatre wala, you've also done modeling, and now you are a fiction writer. So a loud round of applause for Huma. B, who I've only partied with before at JLF, but never been on a stage with before, is a writer, a feminist activist in the UK, just got that MBE, so you know, the Padma equivalent. Programs events at the British Library, has been a BBC producer. She taught English to the Vice President of Colombia and worked at a coleslaw factory, and now she's stepping into fiction. So another round of applause for B over here today. Now we're going to count all the number of seconds that we have rounds of applause, and that's the number of hours both of you need to sleep every night. And that's my medical advice, because I've just been hearing both of their schedules, and they sound outrageous. And it's very difficult to know how you manage to write books alongside all of this. Now, let's start talking about these books, because I have a lot to talk about. I want to start off with B. Now, B, we've known each other a while, and you're an incredibly fun person. But the book you've written is about very boring people going to very boring parties. And then one person who comes in and disrupts this very mundane, middle-class British life in a corner of London. One, which boring people are you hanging out with for you to find out who these people are?
I have to come here to get my kicks, obviously.
And tell us what happens
What's
in this
particularly delighting
boring
is
life.
that my protagonist is a teenage girl. She's an angry teenage girl. There's a lot of fire in young women that both of our protagonists express. And she is a disruptor. And throughout the journey of the book, she becomes increasingly aware of social inequality in modern-day London, and the obstacles that are in her path, the obstacles that are there for her, that are not there for the posh people, for the progressives, for the people at the dinner parties. But she's also terribly badly behaved. She's, well, I'll give you an example. I want to take you on a little creepy experiment, if you will. So imagine with me that you go to somebody's house, you're in their house and you need to go to the bathroom. So you go into the bathroom and you lock the door. You go to the toilet, you wash your hands, and you're looking in the mirror when you wash your hands, and you see that the mirror is a cupboard. Do you open the cupboard and have a little look inside?
Yes.
Yes, you do. So you look inside. Oh, okay. Some shampoo, some shaving things. Behind this, oh, there's a box. Look inside the box. Do you look inside the box? Do you? You do. You actually do. The door is locked. There's some medication. You read the box. Does this change how you feel about the person whose house you're in? So is it what and some of you are nodding, and some of you are going, no, I would never do that. Well, what's true? You will never invite me to your house now. But I know, I'm disinvited everywhere. But I wanted to take this slightly sordid curiosity and explode it. So we take that all the way in the book. And it's also a way of sort of unpicking, not just, yes, she makes some gross discoveries, but she's looking at the underbelly of kind of elitist, progressive respectability. So there's lots to unpack there.
And there's a lot to unpack in your work too, Huma, because Huma's character starts off in New York. I went to college in New York, so I found Zeba very relatable, because we've all known a Zeba in our lives, because she is a too cool for school weed-smoking billionaire who ends up drinking her Choco Nib almond milk vegan whey protein shake and then goes on to save the world. Where did you find Zeba? And on a side note, why does Zeba seem like she can be as at ease in New York as in South Delhi?
First of all, Good afternoon, everyone. This is my first time at the Jaipur Literature Festival, so I'm a JLF virgin. But like, this is amazing. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, if anyone thinks that reading is going down, they need to come right here. And it's thanks to you guys. Like, it's really wonderful. The inspiration for the book, I don't know. You know, when I started writing this, I was obsessed with the idea that I want to start off with a character that has nothing likable about her. That she just has to be this person who perhaps comes across as rude, entitled, not so likable. People we look at and judge, and we kind of don't like them very much. So, would a person like that, is a person like that capable of empathy? Because that also is a block in our head, right? Like we look at someone, and based on how they are dressed, or how well they speak in English or whatever. We already formed assumptions about who they are and what they're capable of and whether we want them to be our friends or not. And I find that like rather judgy. You know what I mean? Like, why should you like judge somebody on the basis of their appearance only or just external factors? And I think human beings are capable of far more. And if we look at beyond the packaging, all of us are just the same. And I think that was the seed of that idea, basically.
And this is something that goes into both your works, right? And even to you, B, your characters are so unlikable. Tara and Giles are just deeply, deeply unlikable people. They're sexist, they're racist, they crack the worst jokes, and you don't want to like them. But at the end, you're sort of peeling away those layers and getting to the heart of darkness in some ways. What was it like to sort of create this world where you hate someone, but you're like,
it. It's very liberating. So I've written non-fiction in the past, and fiction, it took a while to start to enjoy the freedom that it gives you. You can, I took ages. I chaired the mighty Vikas Swarup just 2 days ago, and he has everything planned. His novels are so tightly structured. I did the opposite. I took these characters and they did all these terrible things, and some of them I killed and then I unkilled them, and I enjoyed that freedom. I kind of rolled around in it. It was exciting.
You should write for Bollywood.
you should write for Bollywood. This is exactly 100%.
You should totally write for
but the bad
Bollywood.
behavior,
No, for television,
no,
Indian
'cause
television.
Zeba, I love also the same thing. There's a quote, because she's very self-aware and she's very funny. And she says, everyone wants to watch rich people do weird rich people shit. It's so true. Who doesn't want to watch that? Like, that's the basis of this human curiosity.
So to refer to what she's saying in the book, and this was written a couple of years back, there's this big, mad wedding that takes place where Beyonce performs and whatever happens. And I don't know. I mean, I think I just kind of predicted some things. But you should read it. It's great fun.
You really should, because I want to tell you this, an honest confession on stage. I was assigned this panel very last minute, and I was a little worried because I take my reading very seriously, and I said, how am I going to finish reading both your books? But once I picked them up, I could not put them down. And the worst part was, wherever I read them, people were giving me such nasty stares because I was laughing out loud. In both their books, you will be reading them and going into splits because the character descriptions and the things people say are hilarious. B, you've said, he was the dry nightmare to her wet dream. Where do you come up?
I forgot about that.
Breaking the ice, no fucking way. It was her life's mission to maintain the permafrost and keep people out of her business. These are things that you're reading and laughing out completely loud at. And they're unputdownable books, and they're super fun to read. But they're also very different books, right? Huma, you're writing an unconventional superhero, right? Zeba's a misfit. You don't think that this weed-smoking billionaire is going to save the world. She's undergoing a transformation over the course of a return to this fantasy world you've created. What does it mean to write this new kind of superhero, She's not someone you want to definitely assign as a role model to anyone. She's not someone you can conventionally look up to. Are we seeing a new superhero emerge?
I think so. And I think I love the idea of, like, badly behaved women. I do. Like, I'm exhausted with, being told of how women should dress and talk and walk and behave and what it means to be a little Miss Perfect. And I'm like, okay, I can be badly behaved because often at times, like, there's so much censorship going on, when we're expressing ourselves. And I'm like, if someone could really hear what really goes on inside our little minds, like they would be shocked, but also like really entertained. And I would just want to share that through the book. And I felt like, which is why on the surface she may look like someone you don't know at all, but actually she's very similar to, like for example, whatever I've read of your book, I've not finished it, but I do need to get a copy signed, because I feel like in terms of the seed of the idea, it's so similar, right? It's just about women just being people, and their gender is not like defining who they are or defining their choices. And that to me is the greatest liberation of all, like where you're just allowed to be a person, and you're not seen from the lens of your gender or your sex.
And B, how does that work in your book as well, right? In some ways, very similar. Ashley is badly behaved.
Oh, she's terribly badly behaved. But you're right. Like, and there is a consciousness that I want to address, but it's not around gender. It's around class. And it's really, most British people would rather have colonic surgery with no anesthetic than talk about class. Like, it is a taboo. It makes people very uncomfortable. So naturally, the joy of fiction is you go to the places of uncomfortability. You go to those places that are awkward and excruciating. And that's what Ashley does. She is quite confronting in that regard. And some of my friends have described the book as quite confronting. Class social inequality has got worse in Britain. So we had an equality boom from after the war, post-World War II. The welfare state was created, and we had an equality boom where social divisions were closed for 40 years. Then, with the economic crash in the 1980s, inequality began to widen. And again with COVID, remember that? Not everybody's lockdown looked the same, right? So these are the moments where chasms open in terms of social inequality. And that's what my work wanted to look at. It wanted to look at why we allow this to happen. And the work was inspired by a great, great writer who I love, a British writer called J.B. Priestley. He's from Yorkshire. I'm from Yorkshire. And he was writing around the time of the Second World War. And he was actually a huge figure in English literature, not so known now, partly because he was thrown under the bus by George Orwell, who snaked him out to the government as a possible communist, because his work is about the idea that we are not individuals, we are a community, we're responsible to each other. And it's same with Zeba, it's when you respond to your community or you show sisterhood or solidarity, that's the essence of humanity in a way, and that's really what I wanted to connect to, and that's what the direction of travel is with One Woman Crime Wave, that Ashley, the protagonist, finally realizes that she has more power than she thought.
And in a strange way, my first session was with Andrew O'Hagan, who pointed out that poverty maps in the UK look the same as they did in the 1880s. So poor people in the UK are living in the same places they did 150 years ago as poor people in the UK live now. So we've not managed to take away that inequality. We've kept those things alive while claiming we've made so much progress. I want to delve into that a little more with you, Huma, because again, these unconventional spaces become the sites for you to put out some of your richest narrative, right? The harem becomes the site of plotting, but also of joy and of a place for solidarity.
And education and sisterhood. So for those of you who have not read the book, I speak about the harem as like an important place in the book. And of course, like as a student of history, we all know that all like historical records about the harem about life from back in the day, it was all written by men, mostly. So there's actually no female account of what life was inside the harem. And men who were not allowed to enter the harem, how were they ever supposed to?
Doesn't stop them from mansplaining it,
exactly, right? Oh, this is what must be going on. They must be having these orgies. Oh my God, like the king has 10,001 concubines. And you're just like, I don't think that's physically possible. But then everyone likes to gloat a little bit, I guess. So, but of course, like we have no way to go back and really like understand or explain what happened. But when I decided to write the book, it was my interpretation that, hey, if there's an evil dictator and there's a harem right there where men are not allowed to enter, what if all the women got together? And if he came visiting, they threw his Viagra pills and replaced them with calcium tablets. And now he's just stopped coming there. And
Can
now,
you see why you have to laugh out loud at this book?
and now all the women are literally running a little revolution right under his big fat nose. And he has no idea. And this harem becomes like a place of sisterhood and community where they're helping people to fight this evil dictator.
But these are also spaces, and I know that these books are so fun, right? That while you're reading them, you're not thinking about all of the challenging things that they're addressing, but the harem also becomes a site for you to talk about issues, right? You have your little post-it notes in the book, right? They're little interludes that you write or your sort of characters write that are also creating a world that teaches us how to understand people. Kerun is an intersex person, right? And you've got an intersex character in this book inhabiting the harem. So how did that also become a way for you to examine stories that don't ordinarily get told?
You know, actually, I've seen a lot of Keruns in my life. I don't know how to say that, but I've seen a lot of Keruns, like people intersex, and they've always existed. And they always have existed on perhaps the margins of society or margins of history books or margins of literature even, but they never really are sort of brought front and center. And especially when you talk about a palace and the whole politics around it, the palace eunuch, so to speak, was always very important part of that whole exercise. So how do I take a character like that and place her right at the center of it, where she's almost responsible for making, and I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't read the book, for making the superhero become the superhero. And also then goes through her own crisis of faith, which I think is, I mean, the biggest debate of all times, right? Like, about identity politics and religious politics. And I think it's explored in a very humane way in the book, because I think I'm pro-choice.
Yeah.
And I feel every human being has that, and no God can ever sort of ban you for, you know, just being who you are. And that represents, and that is reflected in the book.
No, and I think that's really powerful, right? And I think in many ways, this is a way in which these microcosms allow you to understand so much more about the world around you. B, middle class, middle-aged family in London goes through this great disruption, but within it, alongside class, is also the specter of race, right? The way in which Samira sort of evolves as a character.
So one of my characters, talking of superheroes, is actually inspired by a true real-life friend of mine who is my superhero. She's called Shazia Haya. She's an Afghan woman journalist who escaped Kabul. And so she's the inspiration for one of my characters. And it's eventually it's this sisterhood which actually is the transformative power, the superpower, if you like, that actually leads to the resolution of Ashley's situation. But you know, this session's entitled Superpowers. And if you want to have a superpower, it's very easy. You read books. This, I cannot overestimate how increasing, I mean, this was always true, but right now in this vortex of speed thinking, quick responses, isolated online digital existence, my daughter's here and she told me that the time that people spend now on an Instagram reel has dropped from like 8 seconds to 1.5 seconds. And yet, you sit down and read a book, and there you have a portal into another human life, and you exist within someone else's life. That is a superpower. Buy books, people!
I know.
Buy books is the #1 lesson.
100%. That's what we all are doing here, selling books right now.
That was my little sales pitch. I know.
That's my little sales pitch.
What are we using these superpowers for? You're destabilizing a dictator. This dictator is a hilarious dictator. He's not like Idi Amin, or he's not like, who else you mentioned over there? He's not like, correct. He's a dictator who's very gentle, and you really had fun with him. Yeah. You know, this is a character that's very well written, and it's a character that shows, I mean, 50 Shades of a Dictator, if it were. Can you tell me a little more about what it means to sort of destabilize that? And
well, the thing about evil is that, you know, we have very binary understanding of evil. It's someone's either good or bad. And I don't think necessarily that's true in life. And the way I've tried to write it in the book is that I'm not trying to take away from the evil things that the Khan has done in his life, but there's a reason for it. And if you don't understand the reason for it, then we're punishing the person and not the problem. And that's where the focus really has to be. And you did a little exercise a while back. I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. If I had the book, I'd have read out that little passage. But it talks about a journey that the Khan did as a little boy, where he literally had to take his father's half-dead body to a place of safety because the village that they lived in got bombed out. And I sort of paused in the middle of the narrative and I said, okay, everyone, dear readers, do a little exercise. If you all, so do it, everyone, do it right now. If you all had to leave your house in the middle of the night, it could be war, some kind of conflict, a flood, earthquake, whatever, what would be the three things you would grab? There you go.
Laptop.
iPhone charger. I don't know, very important. Passport, credit card, and I've done a whole list. And if you think really about the things that you would grab, it will tell you, sir, a lot of things about yourself. So you are what you grab.
You-
That sounds very inappropriate,
That's
I know.
really no, but I
So
want
we need to work on the workaholism. Need to work on that.
But you know, in a strange way, reading these books is so delightful because the reason we need to read today is because everything else that we're consuming is telling us how to do something, how to do it more efficiently, how to think. But we're never being taught how to feel. And there's moments in which an Elon Musk tweet cannot give you the moral clarity that you need to figure out some of these questions. How do you deal with this while writing the book, right? These are difficult books to write because they're moral books. They're not black or white. You're not making snap judgments. What does it mean to then also confront those questions for yourself? What does writing the book do to you?
I mean, you know, this is the question for our time. You know, we live in an age of instant gratification, instant news, instant everything. Like if you ask me honestly, and I know there are lots of members of the press here, but I'll still say it, I hate breaking news. Like I think it's the worst thing that could have happened to our times. Like nobody's interested anymore in what is right, what is wrong, but they have to be the first one out there. And we don't care about like factually if we're correct or not, or if we're hurting people or spreading information or lies. We just want to be the funny person or the most toxic person or the most clickbaity thing has to go out there. Like I experience that in my life as an actor all the time. Like I could have said something and then it comes out and I'm like, and then you're like, why do you say that? Because it just gets more eyeballs. So any kind of toxicity in our times just gets more eyeballs. And I feel, hence, you know, I kind of like that time when you were like, okay, I'm not going to do this breaking news thing every like 15 minutes. But hey, maybe at the end of the day, put on your television, watch the news, maybe after a week, like read the editorial bit and be like, okay, what really happened? As opposed to be so knee-jerky about it. And that has permeated to each and every aspect of our lives. We're just not sitting. We're just not sitting with ourselves, what we're feeling. We're not sitting with the issues that are going on. We just want to make snap judgments about people, about situations, and about problems. And that never is going to solve anything. It's going to, in fact, compound the problem.
It's true, yes, absolutely. That point of we're not sitting, and the problem with your digital life is that social media is like caffeine. It's accelerated, it's very stressful, and there isn't room for nuance. I have to quote the novelist Barbara Kingsolver, who said that fiction creates compassion, and it helps if you're funny. Like we both like there's a lot of laughs in these books, but we're both going to quite dark places. And it's nuanced, you know, it's a lot more complicated. No one thinks that they are the bad person. No one ever thinks that they're the bad person. And yet, all of us are complicit in inequality, one way or another. Everyone is capable. I did a fantastic session with Anna Funder about George Orwell. George Orwell, amazing writer and sort of freedom of expression campaigner, committed oppression in his own personal life. Everyone has these nuances. And it's taking the time and space, and fiction is the perfect vehicle for this, to sit in some discomfort and awkwardness and reflect on our own complicity in these structures.
And you know, the fun part is because...
Yeah, it's also fun.
No, it is also fun. And I want to delve a little deeper into that because you're always taught what an author looks like, you know, or behaves like. There's very staid presumptions about being very serious, and good literature that has moral clarity must come from this serious place. And you know, I deal with this because I became a politician very recently, and my biggest problem was my wardrobe shrank. Because you're not allowed to wear some things as a politician, apparently.
So no
And I
pink?
said,
Are
you
they
know what,
politician
you know what,
shoes?
this is what- I said, no, you know what, this morning I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear, and to hell with it. And that's really important. Because in some ways, B, you've been in conversation with some of the brightest minds in the world. You've been with all of these writers. Do you ever feel a pressure now that you're a writer yourself of fiction to behave a certain way or to conform?
No. No, I mean, I love writers. I love this festival. I love books. But, you know, I've been writing books for a long time, and I feel very comfortable writing books and talking about them.
And do you think that's something that you're seeing in your own experience change as well? Are you seeing newer kinds of writers emerge, with more voices emerge, who aren't sort of fitting that stereotype of a writer?
Not as much as I would like. It's still very much so a posh person's game around the world. Like, it's not easy to get published. It's not easy to have access, to have platforms, you know, so you have to appreciate that and acknowledge it. So it's still not easy. It's not as easy as it should be. But, you know, like, I can't reiterate enough. And this bookshop is a fantastic bookshop, by the way. Just go in and take a look, because the comprehensive buffet of humanity that is on display there, it truly is a feast. So yes, the wider the range of voices, the better. And this festival is, of course, you know, the best possible example of that.
What about you, Huma? You're now a Bollywood actress, which means you're always in the public eye, right? And there's ways in which you can do some things and you can't do some things. How has writing allowed you to inhabit a different world? We were just talking about how this is not your world. You don't come to literature festivals too often. What do you think is the difference in these worlds, and do you see yourself inhabiting them differently?
You know, I used to feel like my job as an actor, now having worked since 2012, my first film, Gangs of Wasseypur, like, I thought I was immune to, like, criticism, or like people looking at me all the time, or having an opinion or whatever. But acting, I still feel you can hide behind so much more. Like, I'm hiding behind a character. I'm hiding behind, oh, this is what the director told me to do, or these are not my words. I was asked to perform this particular scene this way, or whatever. But as a writer...
People still think that's you, though, right? People blur that.
Of course, but
reality.
I feel as a writer, it's so much more vulnerable, because now it's your thoughts. It's who you are. And there's no filter, nothing in the middle. So I had a bit of a panic attack the eve of my book release, and I'm like, like, my principal is going to read this, and my mother is going to read this, and I don't know what they're going to think about me. Am I like this bad girl now, like, with these kind of thoughts? And I don't know, like, you know, suddenly you feel like really scared. And Paulomi is here, my editor, and I called her. I said, I think I've made a big mistake, because in my life, like, I could say something and it gets so misconstrued, and I have to deal with, like, bad press for, like, weeks. And here I have willingly put my thoughts out in the world. Like, I have to be the dumbest person alive.
Courageous. It takes courage, because it is very exposing, and fiction is the most exposing. Because you can say it's fictionalized, but people will still see you in that writing.
And then maybe there are biases that I have that I don't see, right? We can also be blindsided, right? And I am very aware of that. So I feel like, will they really know me who I am? And that's like the most scary thing. But I enjoy this a lot. I think this is a passion. Doesn't pay at all. And it's really tough, what you said. What you said earlier, it's really tough getting published. And even as somebody like me who has a lot of privilege and a lot of, like, doors open far easily, it's really hard. It's slow moving. So, and I can't imagine how hard it must be for someone who just does this. So I really feel if me going out there and talking about it can maybe change things a little bit, I'm happy to, like, yell from, like, rooftops about it.
Or yell at JLF, which is just as impressive, because we've got almost half a city full over here. I want to delve, finally, before we move on to questions from the audience, because I know there will be many, into exactly this question, right? Fiction doesn't pay. It's not going to pay your bills. It's not going to cover even electricity bills at this point.
Not even my hair and makeup.
It's really not going to pay for your hair and makeup either. That bill must be a high one. But it's a very personal process. And it's something that you do in a way alone. That this is a story that you're engaging with others on, but you're doing something alone. And both of you are otherwise very sort of front-facing people, you know, be in your day job, you're doing events at the British Library, you're sort of doing stuff, you're in front of the stage all the time. What does it mean to one write fiction? And is that, how do you write fiction, right? Like, what is your process?
Okay.
But also,
This is
it's a tough question, but also, does the criticism or the reviews that come in for a work of fiction, do they hurt more? Do they sort of feel more serious than the other reviews?
It's, how to say it? Have you ever wanted to go pee so bad that you couldn't control it? It's that urge, it's that calling, like you have
That's
to do
fiction.
it. That's fiction. Like you have to. If you don't do it, like it'll be really messy. That's the feeling, like that.
Yeah, it has to become necessary. So there does come a point where it's so painful and awful that it's like one of us is going to die, the book or me, and no money, spinal curvature, loss of, you know, time with family and friends is, you know, where's the upside? The upside is that it becomes, well, you know, it took me 10 years to write this book, which is a bit embarrassing, but it's something eventually that it scratched its way out of me. That's all I can say. I just had no choice.
And where do both of you write? Where do you usually write? And when?
Everywhere. Really early mornings, like do like a golden hour, 6 to 7 p.m. a.m. before the rest of the day starts, or you know, weekends after work, sometimes even in a lunch break. Obviously, at certain deep editing times, you need like a deep dive. You need more time. So I've been able to carve those out. But particularly with the chaotic way that I structured it or didn't structure it, you have to be able to follow these twists and these curveballs, and it took a long time. I kind of like it though, and also yes. You can't just be a writer. Every writer really has a day gig or some other hustle or, you know, a portfolio career, right? And I actually think that that's very fruitful because we're all in the world, you know. If you're locked away in a quiet room with your laptop, you're not in the world. So I actually quite like, I mean, I suppose I have to say this because I don't have any choice, but I love that I'm in the world and my writing's in the world and I'm drawing on that all the time and sort of sucking that into my writing. Was it like that for you?
I'm a morning person, writer, so I have to like do my morning pages for me to like operate efficiently, and that's been a habit for like years now. And I started working on this book just like pre-COVID, and wrote like the first 10 pages, and selfishly I wrote it as a television series. And then I showed it to a bunch of people, and like, oh, it's a great idea. And then of course COVID happened, and then I had nothing, and I'm like, should I write a script? Oh, I'm like, should I write a book? And I'm like, everyone can write a script, but writing a book, now that's special. So, and that took a lot more courage, I think. But yeah, I did my morning pages, and of course, when you edit and all that, then you block out like a whole week or 10 days, and then you're just doing that because that's far more intensive work. But my style of writing, at least for this book, was very like free-flowing, unconscious stream just of thoughts spilling out on paper, and then the next day I'd be like, okay, that works, that doesn't work, and maybe something's there, and then I just like keep writing about it. And I try to like not filter my own thoughts or try not to like block my own like thinking, but sometimes people are like, you're judging your own writing, and that I don't think is my style. You have to like vomit it out and then you figure it out if it's worth anything.
Vomit writing, I love that.
So we've gone from needing a wee to vomiting. It's so glamorous.
And who do you share your writing with before it gets published?
A bunch of friends. So when I was thinking I'll convert this into like a script, I did ask a writer friend, and he was like, no, you have to write it and don't chicken out. Only you can write this. And I was like, I'll pay you. Like, no, you have to write it. So, but yeah, a bunch of people, and at various stages, and I just like probably sent 3-4 chapters out. But I think the whole thing only my editor ended up reading. Yeah.
What about you, B? Who's
You
reading
have
the book?
to. The only thing that kept me sane as in my writerly capacity is my writer sisters. One of them, Amrita Tripathi, is here at the festival. We share our work with each other. But I also had the very stern editorial gaze of my teenage daughters, one of whom is right there, because the protagonist was a 15-year-old girl. So I had to like run it past them for just the way that they speak and the things that they would respond. I should add that Ashley is a lot more criminal than my daughters, although I don't know, maybe they are criminals and just haven't told me. I don't know.
Maybe. Maybe.
And my last question, which neither of you have answered yet. How do you deal with the feedback on the book once it's been published? How do you deal with reviews?
I would love to say I don't care. But anyone that says they don't care is flat out lying. I care. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. An unkind comment on Amazon. I mean, obviously, I hate Amazon. But
Are you getting friends to comment and be like, give your book a review? You must. Everyone go and give both of their books very good comments on every platform available. Good Goodreads reviews.
I've not had a bad review so far, but I've also just written one book, so I don't know, we'll wait for it. And I think everyone's been really nice to me. I think they just like the idea, oh, you're an actress and you can write? Well done, you know? So I'm getting that kind of a little like, you can do it, girl, kind of a thing right now. So, yeah. But I would hate to get a bad review. I think it would really like scar me.
On that note, once again, a loud round of applause for two incredible superwomen with superpowers who've written two unputdownable books that I really want you to read because they're so fresh, they're so exciting, and they're a genre of writing that makes you think but also makes you laugh out loud. So be aware. On that note, questions. I know we must have lots of them. The gentleman there with the sunglasses, if we can get him a mic.
Questions from women, please.
Yes.
Huma, sorry for being shallow, but I just wanted to know that what did Mohsina whisper in Fazal's ear? Like they were sitting on the embarkment and Fazal says that मैं ये करता हूँ and Mohsina says something. I just wanted to know what is it.
किताब के बारे में पूछना चाहिए.
हाँ, नहीं किताब के बारे में पूछिए तो गलत बात है.
हाँ, ये हम सवाल
अच्छा, आप मुझे
देंगे.
बाद में मिलिए, मैं आपके कार्ड में बता देती हूँ.
Other questions? Do we have? No, we're going to split evenly between men and women. Go ahead. Lovely ladies in the audience, please raise your hand so I can give questions to you.
Hi everyone. So B, basically a question I'll take back you to 15 years back when Jane Austen happened. So how did you, what inspired you to bring Jane Austen there in Baghdad? So that's one thing. And Huma, thank you very much for laying to rest my fears of and demons of writing a book myself. And secondly, basically this, see in movies, basically stars live from Friday to Friday. What about the authors usually?
Okay. Thank you for the first book I co-wrote with an Iraqi woman called May Witwit. It's a non-fiction work called Talking About Jane Austen in Baghdad, and it began as a work of journalism, but ended up as two women across the divide. Basically, my country had invaded her country, and she said, "Get me the fuck out of here! Your country trashed my country. Let's get to work." And we did. And so now she lives in the UK. She was a lot more polite than that. Actually, that was my paraphrasing, and I apologize. But it was a pretty desperate situation. It took a long time. And so the book is very little about Jane Austen, but a lot about two women's lives, one in Iraq and one in England. Thanks for noticing that.
Well, Friday to Friday anxiety is always there in my profession. I think being an author is a full-time anxiety-ridden job. And because you have anxiety, you need to write. So I don't think there's a cure for it. But I think it's the most cathartic thing ever to be doing. So anyone who has anxiety must write.
The lovely ladies here, yes.
Thank you. I need to get up? Okay. So very simple question, but an age-old question. Why are badly behaved women so threatening to society? And
we have enough time for that.
yeah, and what's on the other side once you do take the plunge? Do people treat you differently? Is there truly liberation on the other side?
Can I? Badly behaved women are not a threat to society. Indeed, they're the only reason that anything ever gets done. I give you the suffragettes. I give you Sophia Duleep Singh. I mean, so many women we can shout out. So praise be to badly behaved women.
Woo. There she said it.
And the lady next to you.
But you know what I meant.
I did, but I had to say what I said.
Good afternoon. You mentioned Zeba from being a very bad girl to being a superpower. And when we saw Maharani, you had a docile woman turning into, the bad woman. So, I mean, with the naughty lady. But did you did you find any parallels there, or did something inspire you or affect how Zeba turned around?
Sorry, say that again. I missed it.
Did working on Maharani have any influence on how Zeba would also be? Because you see
Actually, going back to your earlier comment, it's so interesting, right? What you said about so for those of you who've seen Maharani, it's a series that I do where I play like this village woman who doesn't know anything about no, she's a simple village woman with 3 children and lives the village life, and her husband's like a chief minister, and then he sort of has this accident and he nominates her, and now she's chief minister and she doesn't have a clue. And by the end of season 1, she actually sends off the husband to jail because he's the bad guy. And he's been the one stealing money from the state. So how does she become the bad person? For me, she's like the ultimate hero because she chose her job as a chief minister and her job for the country as opposed to like family politics, And I think that's what we need more in this country. Maybe you should take that back to Delhi.
I'm taking that back to Delhi. At the back over there, the gentleman in the orange shirt standing up there, if we can get a mic to him.
Good afternoon to both of you. So, as an aspiring author, have you faced any writer's block? And if so, how much time did it take to break it out?
Either of you?
No, I've not had writer's block. I don't know. I think
I
you
don't have
should-
time for writer's block.
I know, I don't have time for writer's block either.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much going on, and you have to just work so hard just to like keep your head above water. That there's always pressure on time. So
I feel writer's block, perhaps. I mean, I've never had it. Perhaps it comes from that crippling fear of being perfect, and perfection is so ridiculous. I think if you just keep doing it and turning up, just keep writing. Something will figure out, even if it's bad.
Any other questions? There, ahead, the gentleman here.
And there's a lady there, very shyly, she's putting her hand up.
yes.
Go for it.
Get her the mic, then we get you the mic.
Thank you. Hi, Uma. Hi, B. So, I just had one question. So, while you were writing this book, Zeba, did you thought who the audience would be, or you just wanted to just put it out to the world and the audience to come back to you and tell us, okay, we are there?
Everyone. I wrote this book for everyone. I didn't just write this book for women. I wrote it for everyone. Because I wanted to share what I was feeling with everyone, and I feel like I have tried to the best of my ability, not to talk down to anyone, but just perhaps share my reflections of what I see in the world around me in as authentic a way as possible. Which is why I didn't just write this for just women, but I wrote it for everyone.
did you think about who might read it though? Did you kind of think, oh,
I just did not want my mum to read it. I mean, I don't know. Why is that? We have to really
I don't know.
therapy this out,
when
I'm
one
like,
woman
mom
crime
will read it.
yeah, I know, and I think it's a really good question because you have to basically annihilate the possibility of those potential readers and just stay in your space. And I had when One Woman Crime Wave first came out, I got a text message from my mother-in-law, and it just said, "I feel rather uncomfortable."
I would die. I'd be like,
The book's done its job.
Hi, good afternoon to the panel. So, I've been a reader all my life, right? I've read fiction, I've read non-fiction, now I've jumped to self-help books. So, I've recently started writing. It's been like 2 years since it started with journal entries of how my life is, how my day is. But I want to delve into how you write, right? What do you think about when you write? How do you decide if you want to go into fiction, if you want to go into non-fiction? How do you, the question is, what do you...
Okay, if it will come to you. Like I've had biographer friends describe it as the tap on the shoulder. Sometimes a book just picks you up and drags you out the front door. Keep doing what you're doing. Absolutely, you're doing the right thing by writing already, and it will just come, and it becomes necessary. It becomes necessary to say this, to write the thing that you will need to write. But in the meantime, you just have to keep journaling and keep practicing, and also reading. Reading is the way to get to be a writer.
Uh, it's all the audience, I must say, it's an overwhelming experience. Me as a doctor, even to listen to both the women superpower, superwomen. So I just want to express the thing that Huma, I have seen you as an actor. I've seen you in Zack's show, and I've seen you in a writer. So I think this is the perfect role you are playing. And from you, both of you, I want a single line message as a writer for women empowerment.
I just want to say, ma'am, thank you सबसे पहले तो. आपने जो words बोले, it really means a lot. And I want to say that you are also a superwoman. And I feel every woman out here is a superwoman because I have never met in my life a woman who's not strong. And strength comes in many forms. It's not just about being aggressive. And I feel like that strength that we have, as long as we keep like going back to it in moments of crisis, I mean, we all can be superheroes in our own life. We don't need anyone to rescue us.
I agree with what you say, and a sort of unacknowledged superpower is that every human being, no matter how humble, has the power to make one other human being feel valued or safe. And the world feels so hostile and so angry, and we shouldn't forget that each one of us has that possibility of just connecting to one other person. And that's true of Ashley in my book, that's the final realization that saves her.
And we're out of time, but I want to say once again that what I have taken away from this incredible panel is that we need to support badly behaved women and uphold them as the most shining example
for bad girls
of what we can do as a society. And as a young gay boy growing up in Mumbai, it was the badly behaved women in our own families, in the societies we see around us, who were inspirations because they said, screw the world and do what you want to do. So badly behaved women are inspiration. These two women are an inspiration. Thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience. And thank you to both of you for such a wonderful session.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's make some noise for our speakers. A big thank you to Huma Qureshi, Rowlatt, Anish Gawande for sharing their superpowers with us this afternoon.